Mr. Mike Kelly, we're in good hands, the Vice Chair of the Subcommittee on Asia and the Pacific.
I thank you, Madam Chair. And again, my first time in Congress is very privileged to serve with you, and I appreciate your leadership, Mr. Burma. I'm going to miss you. Ambassador Burns, when you used to talk about it, and I keep hearing about resources, only 1% of the budget. It doesn't sound like very much money. So what is our budget?
Our budget is $50 billion.
$50 billion.
That's correct. That's 8%, approximately 8% of that of the defense budget.
Okay. So when people hear 1%, doesn't sound like a lot of money, but 50 billion is certainly a lot of money. When we talk about resources, and I'm trying to understand because I've listened to a couple of different briefings. I heard Mr. Pickering and Admiral Mullen. I've heard you gentlemen today, and I think maybe you're not the folks that should be here because, as Mr. Johnson pointed out, you aren't really part of the decision-making process. But what I'm trying to understand, what I can't get my mind wrapped around is everybody says this was a very unstable and highly volatile area. Then why, for God's sake, would we take out the best trained people we have? Why? Why would we remove the SST team? Was it because of money?
Well, as you're aware, as we spoke about earlier,
it's just a yes or no. Was it because of money?
No.
No, it wasn't because of money, because we know the SST team really came out of the Department of Defense budget, right? So it didn't have anything to do with your budget.
SST team, as you are aware, was in Tripoli.
I'm aware where they were, and also aware that Lieutenant Colonel Woods had begged to stay there. Mr. Nordstrom, where the regional office, had begged to stay there. Ms. Lamb said it wasn't because of money that they couldn't stay. Somebody made a really bad decision. Now, I don't have any idea of the voting registration of Ambassador Stevens, Sean Smith, Mr. Woods, Mr. Doherty. I have no idea how any of these folks were registered. So for me, it's not a matter of it being a partisan issue. We have 4 dead Americans. I'm trying for the life of me to understand how, when we say, and I read Ambassador Kretz, when he's leaving there, you know what everybody says about the area? It's a Wild West show. Nobody's in charge. We're in a host country that can't supply us with the assets that we need. What in the world were we thinking? Why would we pull out people and make our ambassador more vulnerable? What were we doing? And who made the decision? And if neither one made the decision, say, I didn't have anything to do with it. Because what I'm finding out in this administration, that nobody had anything to do with it. If you had anything to do with it, just say I had something to do with it and I made the decision.
No,
neither one of them.
I did not have anything to do with it.
Okay.
That said, we do need to make sure that we implement.
Are you aware of a GAO request in 2009 to do a review? Because they thought it was woefully, the strategic review of our embassies that were not taken, and it was a strategic problem, a security problem. Any of you aware of that? We had a hearing on October the 10th. GAO was in here, said, to this day, the Department of State has not responded or done the review. Now, I find it interesting. Now, we're going to do the review. A little bit late, so that hasn't taken place. Now, I want to ask you, in addition to the four dead Americans, how many people were wounded that night?
I think there were 3 Americans who were wounded, and one of the wounded is still in Walter Reed Hospital.
Just one of them?
I'm not certain. I know
any idea of how bad they were injured?
Yes, sir. I mean, the gentleman, our colleague who's at Walter Reed, was injured very badly. That's
very badly.
Still there.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So whenever we found out that this attack took place, how long did it take us to get there, to fly, to get there to help those people out that we knew were wounded? We knew we had dead. We knew we had wounded. How long did it take to get there? And where did the plane leave from? And where did it land?
There was a plane that left from Tripoli within, as I mentioned before, about 2.5 hours.
Where did the flight originate? Do you know?
In Tripoli.
How did it was sitting in Tripoli?
No, it was a chartered aircraft that the embassy chartered as soon as they found out that the attack.
So where did the chartered airplane take off from to
Tripoli.
Get to Tripoli?
Yes, sir.
So it flew to Benghazi?
Yes, sir.
How long did it sit in the tarmac?
It sat on the tarmac. Well, the team was there for about 3 hours while they were trying to determine what had happened to Ambassador Stevens. It wasn't.
Okay, so they couldn't get off the tarmac. What time did we get them, by the way, to? So we flew them from Benghazi. Where did we fly them back to?
I'm sorry, fly.
The plane, you said it flew from Tripoli to Benghazi.
Went to Benghazi.
Picked up our dead and our wounded.
Returned.
And where did it fly to then?
To Tripoli.
To Tripoli.
Yes.
And then where did they eventually get their medical?
Well, they got immediate medical care there, first in Benghazi, then in Tripoli, and the embassy nurse behaved heroically during that period.
No, I understand that. Where did the plane land finally?
Then they were evacuated to Germany.
Germany. And when did we evacuate our people in Tripoli?
It was within a few hours
of the attack.
They returned to Tripoli.
Okay, a great deal of time. But see, the timelines really get me confused here. And I think people were waiting to hear, can we land, can we not land, can we get our people out, can we not get our people out? There's a great deal of time that evolved in between.
So
and it really, listen, I'm not blaming you two, because you two really shouldn't be here today. The Secretary of State should be here today. She can't be here. I understand she's injured. And I respect that. But there's something wrong here. And I'm going to tell you this, that the American people should wonder what happened that night and why it took so long. But before that, why? Why would we pull the best trained people we have out of an area that is called it was a dangerous spot, it was a high risk, it was a high threat, and we made it a soft target. That's what I heard from our Admiral Mullen. It was a soft target. We actually emboldened those folks that were there that night to say, come and get us. We pulled out all our people. You know who we replaced the SST team with? Libyan nationals at $4 an hour, unarmed. And that's the way we respond to high risk areas. That's how we respond to areas that are volatile. That's how we respond to areas that are in the worst spots possible. The same time that we were doing this, do you know what we were doing in Vienna? We had a big party, the Green Initiative. We put in a $108,000 electric charging station for 2 electric cars. We had a champagne party. We talked about how great we were in this Green Initiative. But what I don't understand is how in the world could we leave our people in Benghazi so vulnerable? And if it's about resources, that's baloney. And you know it, and I know it. And I, for one, am really disappointed in the way the Secretary of State and Department of State have handled this.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr.